Welcome to Reality Narratives, where every tale echoes through mysterious corridors. If you're ready for this spine-tingling adventure, subscribe and give it a spectral thumbs up right at the start. Your comments will unlock uncharted realms, so let's dive in what eerie mysteries stir your imagination. Many more secrets lie ahead. Let's uncover them together. I've been working with a team of astrobiologists for years, studying Martian meteorites, fragments of Mars that crash-landed on Earth millions of years ago. Our job is to analyze the chemical makeup of these meteorites in hopes of discovering signs of ancient life. I always believed that our search would be for simple fossils, microscopic traces of bacteria or other microbial life that might have existed on Mars billions of years ago when it was far more hospitable. But 2 months ago, everything changed. It started with an unassuming sample from a meteorite unearthed in Antarctica. The sample, as usual, was carefully cleaned and prepared for analysis. But as we ran our scans, something strange appeared. Embedded deep within the rock was a structure. It wasn't a fossil nor a crystal formation. It was something far more complex, something engineered. It was a microscopic hexagonal lattice composed of carbon nanostructures, perfect in its design, uniform in shape, and too precise to be a natural formation. At first, we thought it might have been contamination, a tiny fragment of human technology accidentally introduced. But as the scans progressed, it became clear that this was no contamination. This structure was older than the meteorite itself, over 4 billion years old. We were staring at something alien, something that didn't belong to Earth. Then, as we continued our investigation, we found more. Other meteorites in our collection, once thought to be simple rocks, contained similar structures. They were degraded, fractured over billions of years, but unmistakably the same. Some of them even contained what appeared to be cells, or at least structures resembling cells. These weren't like any microorganisms we'd ever seen before. Their DNA, or something very much like DNA, was unlike anything found on Earth. The double helix, that familiar spiral structure that has defined life on Earth, was nowhere to be found. Instead, their genetic code was far more complex and intricate, coiled into shapes we had never encountered. It was then that Dr. Kimura, one of our lead researchers, made the connection. Her eyes widened as she examined the data, her voice barely above a whisper. "These aren't alien microbes," she said. "They're seeds." At first, her words didn't make sense. We had been trained to think of life as something that evolved from microbial forms, not as something designed. But the more we studied, the more it became clear. These weren't simple microorganisms. These were bioengineered capsules, life forms designed to survive the harshest of conditions. They were built to endure ejection into space, survive the vacuum of interstellar travel, and withstand the violent impacts of landing on an alien world. And that's when we realized the terrible truth: these were not just seeds. They were engineered tools for terraforming. Billions of years ago, Mars was dying. Its once thick atmosphere had thinned to near nothingness, and its magnetic field had collapsed, leaving the planet vulnerable to the sun's radiation. The oceans had evaporated, and the once thriving landscape had turned to barren desert. The last remnants of Martian civilization, if you could even call it that, faced extinction. But they weren't ready to die. In a last-ditch effort to preserve their legacy, they engineered life itself, designing microbes capable of transforming the environment of another planet. They packaged these microbes into resilient, nearly indestructible capsules and launched them toward Earth, the nearest candidate for survival. Back then, Earth wasn't a place where life could exist. The atmosphere was thick with toxic gases, the surface molten from constant meteor impacts, and the air was filled with volcanic ash. But over millions of years, these engineered life forms began to alter Earth's atmosphere, changing the composition of the air, making it breathable. They helped form oceans, stabilized the environment, and created the conditions necessary for life to thrive. They didn't just survive, they changed the planet. Earth's atmosphere, its oceans, the complex ecosystems we now depend on, they were all created, in part, by these ancient Martian microbes. We were living on a planet that had been engineered by a distant civilization, and it didn't stop there. We ran simulations based on the genetic fragments we recovered. If these microbes were designed to terraform, then they wouldn't stop once the planet had become habitable. They would continue to adapt, evolve, and reshape the environment, pushing it towards something more familiar, something Martian. Mars, after all, wasn't always a barren desert. It had oceans, clouds, and green valleys just like Earth. And then it had changed, becoming the dry, lifeless world we see today. What if Earth wasn't the end of the process? What if we were just another phase in a cycle of planetary transformation? Dr. Kimura's hypothesis was a terrifying one. She proposed that we, humanity, were not the final stage of the Martian terraforming program. What if Earth was just another step in a cycle of creation, decay, and rebirth? Terraform, thrive, collapse, repeat. At first, I dismissed her theory as fanciful, a stretch. But as time passed, the implications began to sink in. What if the process didn't end with us? What if we were merely the latest iteration of an ancient cycle designed to perpetuate the terraforming process? And if that were the case, what would happen next? The answer came 6 months later, and it was far worse than we could have imagined. One of our deep soil samples from Antarctica had shown something we thought impossible. Beneath layers of ice and rock, untouched for millions of years, we found another of the bioengineered capsules. This one, however, was different. Unlike the others, which had been dormant for eons, this capsule was active. It was alive. The moment we discovered it, our containment protocols were initiated. We sealed it in an airtight chamber, ensuring no contamination could escape. But it didn't matter. The capsule was growing, slowly and relentlessly. It was changing, evolving, and it wasn't dormant anymore. We watched in horror as the capsule cracked open. Inside was a viscous fluid, and within that fluid, strands of material twisted and turned, moving like something alive. As we observed it under the microscope, we realized that this was not just a biological process, it was a transformation. The genetic material, whatever it was rearranging itself. It was rewriting its code. And worse still, it was rewriting our genetic code. At first, we thought it was a glitch in the system, a mistake. But the data didn't lie. The genetic sequence within the capsule was not just interacting with Earth's environment, it was directly interfacing with the human genome. Slowly, bit by bit, it was altering the DNA of the sample. It was taking human genetic material and reprogramming it. We were no longer the experiment. We were the tool, the product of a long-forgotten terraforming program. And now, we were evolving again. Dr. Kimura became obsessed. She pored over the data, her mind racing with the implications. "It's not finished," she muttered, barely looking up. "We weren't meant to be the end. We're only the halfway point." I thought she was losing her mind. But then I saw it too. The same genetic material, the same bioengineering principles, rewriting us from the inside out. It wasn't just a process of evolution, it was a carefully controlled experiment. One designed to reshape humanity in ways we couldn't yet comprehend. Dr. Kimura was the first to disappear. She took one of the capsules with her, and we haven't heard from her since. Our tracking team searched the glaciers, the lab, and even the surrounding mountains. There was no sign of her, no trace of where she might have gone. I'm starting to think that she knew what was coming. She had become part of the plan, a player in the cycle that had begun long before any of us were born. I don't know how much time we have left. The capsules are waking up. The design is alive again, and it's rewriting everything, us included.